Hello and welcome to the second video presentation for our grade 11 students. My name is Dr. Ryan Hinchy, and today with Mr. Jeremy Forrester we will be presenting on the university application process. Today's presentation will touch upon many different countries. Primarily we will focus upon the US and the UK because that is where the majority of our students apply, but we will be talking about the application processes in many countries. So hopefully everyone can get some useful information from this presentation. We always start with the idea of fit. This is our personal philosophy in our office. Every student has universities that are good fits for them. Now, fit is defined as finding an institution that meets the academic, emotional, geographical, and financial needs of the student. So when we talk about what is a good fit for one student, it may not necessarily be the best fit for another student. So every student is unique in this process, and that's why we work with students individually. When we start talking about looking for universities, it may be a bit daunting to understand where to start looking. So here are just some resources that we utilize in our office and hopefully that you can utilize at home as well. Every student has a Bridge U account. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. College Board is a useful website that focuses mostly on US universities. Same goes for Princeton Review. Also, we have a lot of university information sessions that you can find on things like our Power School page. We've recorded a lot of presentations and put the information on there. Also, individual universities will have a lot of information on their websites. They will have virtual tours and information sessions that you can look at on their own websites. Another big, exciting opportunity that we have for our students is that we will be doing a virtual fair this year. Typically, we host an in-person fair for our students, but this year is a little bit different. So the virtual fair will be held on the 23rd of March from 5 to 7 p.m. This will be an international fair, so regardless of where you're looking at throughout the world, there will be university representatives there ready to speak to you. So this is a great opportunity to gather more information, to expand where you may be looking and what courses you may be looking for, and just gather information. More information about how to register for this fair will come out later in the year, so just stay tuned. And finally, there's a lot of surveys and websites out there that you can use. When you start looking for universities, obviously you want to start looking for where in the world that you're looking for. So the previous slide talked about some of the resources for US universities. In the UK, the process is a little bit different. So we will go through the application processes in each country, but the search process is also different depending upon which country you're looking for. UCAS is the centralized system for UK admissions. Now, the good thing about the UK is that they do have this centralized process. The US doesn't have such to the same degree of a centralized process. There are processes that may be common to a select group of schools, but in general, the UK has one common centralized application process, and that is called UCAS. So if you're not familiar with the UCAS website and you are looking for UK universities, please become familiar with the UCAS website. In addition to that, you can go on to find out what open days and taster days are available to students. Typically, these are days that students can travel to the university and get a feel for what the university has to offer. However, as times are a little bit different, this may look different this year as well. So a lot of this may happen virtually. But opendays.com and unitasterdays.com are two websites where you can understand what is out there for you to investigate these universities. Obviously, going online, looking at the universities, and then reading on the subject. Because in the UK you are applying specifically to a course, you have to apply directly into the subject. And the website myheplus.com is a website that you can expand your knowledge on the subject that you may want to study. Throughout all of these sources, it's important to know that there are entry requirements for UK universities. And going back to the UCAS website, you can get an understanding of what the requirements are for entry into specific courses at specific universities. And that's a big difference between the UK system and other systems around the world.
So the UK, in Europe and Asia, you apply to a course. In the US, you apply to the university. In Canada, you apply to the faculty. So on this spectrum, which is a bit of a continuum, we can see that the most specialised ones are on the left, the UK, and this means that most classes taken are related to the course with some exceptions. And this happens throughout the whole duration of the course. Now, on the opposite side, we have the most exploratory, the US. The US is where the students have the opportunity to explore a wider range of subjects for a longer period of time. So, well, that is relative to other countries. And so it gives the student a little bit more time to decide what subjects they prefer, what they work well in best, and it gives the student time to declare what they wish to choose as a major or a minor. So with Canada, we can see that it's slightly more on the right-hand side here with the more exploratory courses. So as I've mentioned, you apply to the faculty in Canada, but you choose a range of subjects within that faculty, typically for the first year. So the US is more like 2 years across faculties, whereas Canada, it's within the faculty for about a year, some places 2, depending on the course. Canada's a good place to explore while also having a slightly lower price tag than the US. It can be seen as the best of both, really, specialization and exploratory in my mind. We'll be looking at how you apply to some of these regions in the next couple of slides. So as mentioned in the last slide, Canada is more holistic than the UK, yet less than the US. There is no centralized system in Canada in the application process like there is in the UK, which is UCAS, which we'll look at a little bit later on as well. So within Canada, there are a number of differences between the systems. However, the majority may not need a personal statement, yet some will ask for a letter of motivation, but this is not very common. Some will also not need letters of recommendation, you'll be happy to hear. But some also ask for self-reporting grades. Students will upload information and documents themselves to portals. So the most centralized system that you would get in Canada is the one for Ontario. This is called the OUAC or UAC. So Canada's application processes generally work in provinces. So there was a system in Ontario, there's a system in BC, British Columbia, and in Alberta. But as Ontario is the largest application system because it has more universities within the province, that's why I say that it's the most centralized that you'll find. You apply to all of your Ontario universities in one place here on the OUAC. Students often find this really quite simple to complete and very easy. The next most popular province that our students apply to is British Columbia, BC. Here students can use apply.educationbc.ca. So this website, you can apply to multiple universities within BC, however, not all BC universities. UBC, for example, is not on the Apply Education BC website. So if you're going to apply to UBC, for example, you apply directly to the university. Now, other provinces do have websites where you can make multiple applications, but it's not that common that students apply to multiple universities within the other provinces. So because of that, we find that the best way for students to apply is direct to the universities themselves. And all universities have a good platform for you to apply to directly to them. When we look at Canada, it's important to be aware that some specific courses will have specific subject requirements, such as needing calculus rather than statistics AP. So work with your college counsellor to make sure that you understand the entry requirements and the subject requirements in some of those more specialised fields that may require them. In total, the general cost of university will be similar to the UK as an international student. There are really some truly fantastic universities in Canada, and I'm a great advocate of these universities. Some of the more popular universities that our students have been interested and or applied to or gone to include the University of Toronto, McGill, UBC, York University, Ryerson, University of Waterloo, which is excellent for employability. They've got the best co-op in the country. Co-op is a work placement program where you get paid, which exists in Canadian universities. University of Victoria, Queen's, Concordia, University of Ottawa, Dalhousie, University of Alberta, just to name a few. Canada often vies for third, fourth and fifth place in terms of the most popular destination worldwide for international students. It rivals Australia and China for that third spot. And the three of these countries often, year by year, interchange between third, fourth and fifth place amongst themselves. The next place for us to look at is the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a relatively cheap option in terms of tuition fees to apply, where it's about 6,000 to 12,000 euros for non-EU citizens, and for EU citizens about 3,000 euros per year. There are many courses in English in the Netherlands, and it's quickly becoming a very popular choice among international and EU students. With the Netherlands, it's really important to check that you meet the entry requirements for maths and English, plus any other subject-specific requirements. Most universities will generally require an IB diploma or APs and have a GPA requirement. We've had Dutch nationals return with just a high school diploma before, yet the mode of delivery was in Dutch for those courses. Between October the 1st and December the 1st, students need to register on StudyLink. And here you'll get a link to the online application forms at the universities that you're applying to. So you fill out the StudyLink, which is very easy to do, and then within 24 hours you get a link sent back to your email address to then click and then apply directly to those universities. This is the university's own application. And then after this, the selection process will then happen. Now, many universities in the Netherlands will include a letter of motivation, such as VU Amsterdam, the University of Amsterdam. They require letters of motivation as examples, which are similar to the UK personal statement, yet it's a little bit more tailored to the specific university itself, talking about your motivation about why you want to go to that specific university and study that particular course further. Now, it's important to be aware of this phrase, numerus fixus. Numerus fixus is a restriction of the number of places on offer on popular degree programs. This is necessary when there's a huge demand for places with relatively low entry requirements. In essence, it's no different to the process that usually you'll apply for popular degrees in the UK. But the Netherlands, it's not as common to have a numerus fixus course. Most of the courses taught in English are not numerus fixus though. There are some exceptions, such as medicine and psychology, artificial intelligence, international business administration, international relations and physiotherapy. And this year, computer science is being added more to that list. There is more growth in these areas and other courses in the Netherlands as well. So more can become numerus fixus in the future. Students can apply for only 2 numerus fixus programs. It used to be only one, but medicine and physiotherapy still only now allow one application to a numerus fixus course. You have a total of 4 choices in StudyLink, but the other 2 or 3 cannot be used for numerus fixus courses. in the same field. So you apply to a course that stipulates that it is not numerus fixus on its application page. You can find that out by going to studyinholland.nl and then from there clicking links and then researching more about the individual courses in universities. Students with more modest grades generally find that it's a little bit more attainable to apply for courses that are not numerus fixus. It is to be noted, though, that some universities can interview and you can have online placement tests as well with Dutch university applications. Now, Spain. In Spain, there's no centralized system to apply to the Spanish universities. There are university programs in the more internationally minded universities, such as IE University, ESCP, ESADE, Navarra. These are all popular choices with our students. And there are programs that are also delivered in Spanish as well, that are mainly catering to the domestic student or EU citizens. Yet they do reserve, some of them do reserve up to 5% for international students. There are a growing number of business schools in Europe offering undergraduate and postgraduate courses. And some of these can be found in Spain, which are delivered in English, such as BTS, the Barcelona Technology School, EU Business School, IE, ESCP, IQS, School of Management, IESE Business School, ESERP Business School, and these can often enable students also to travel between multinational campuses. They do also like their acronyms. EU Business School, for example, has campuses in Zurich as well as in Spain. And IQS have Paris, the Netherlands, and beyond. In Spain, there are also American universities based in Madrid, such as St. Louis University and Suffolk, which are part of the American Universities Abroad group. With Spain, applications are usually done online. For example, the ESADE application will ask a series of questions or short essay questions for the students to do, a number of between 250 to 350 word questions, alongside entering a number of other details. It's common to have an admissions test with committee decisions being made and sometimes an interview for Spanish universities. You can see a small list of examples of universities that are both international with English delivery, commonly with representatives in London, and the domestic below at the bottom of the slide. These domestic universities will be very cheap, as mentioned before, and a lot of courses delivered, of course, in Spanish. Students apply directly to the university's website. Domestic Spanish university application forms are usually very straightforward, yet this is assuming you speak Spanish near to fluency. Now, as mentioned before, Australia is also a very popular destination for international students in general. The costs for domestic students for their tuition is between $5,000 to $10,000 Australian dollars, or for an international student, the tuition would be about $14,000 to $35,000 Australian dollars. The country's oldest research universities comprise of what's known as the Group of 8 universities. So these are Australian National University, Monash University, and the universities of Adelaide, Melbourne, New South Wales, Queensland, Sydney, and Western Australia. I believe also we could include the 9th, Tasmania, who, to keep their fees lower for domestic students, opted to remain state-funded, so therefore are not able to be included in the Group of 8. Australian universities will have a list of entry requirements for each individual subject on their websites. Every qualification, such as the IB diploma, will be converted into an ATAR score. So you use your IB diploma points to then get an ATAR score. And it's this ATAR score that allows you to compare like for like when you're applying to universities. So every type of system and qualification will convert to ATAR. Then the universities will give you the ATAR points required for specific courses for their entry requirements. A domestic student, which means Australian or Kiwi, which is New Zealand student, will apply in a centralised system. That is a domestic resident student. An international student applies directly to the universities. So knowing the universities is important and research is key. Speak to your college counsellor if you're interested in applying to Australia or New Zealand. Students usually look at Australia as an additional route after applying to other countries, as there's a later application deadline and a later start date possible. As a Southern Hemisphere country, the academic year starts in February. However, there's another option to join earlier in mid-year in July. As it takes a while to complete the application process, plus the time it takes to apply for a visa and make other preparations for moving overseas, we recommend that you start researching and applying to universities you'd like to attend at least 12 months before you're due to start your degree. As mentioned before, Australia often vies for third place with Canada and China. Now, applying to Asian universities is not always a very popular choice, but there are some excellent choices out there, with some great hidden gems to this emerging economically diverse continent. Hong Kong, although there's been some recent political issues, hosts some outstanding universities still, and so does Singapore. For example, the NUS Yale University in Singapore is world famous, and yes, this is the real Yale. There's also the NUS University in Singapore, which is one of their most competitive universities. Also, it's worth knowing that there are sometimes some other top UK and US universities with campuses in Asia as well, such as the University of Nottingham, having a campus both in Ningbo, China and Malaysia. There's also the University of Southampton and Reading based in Malaysia. The Chinese University of Hong Kong, which is a top 50 university, has a campus in Shenzhen in mainland China, which is a lot cheaper than being based in Hong Kong. And it has a number of very easily attainable scholarships as well for international students. China has a number of top flight universities as well, such as the Tsinghua University and Nanyang Technology University. And in Korea, CAIST in Seoul is also well known. We have a lot of returning Korean students that apply here as well. These all have English programs. Now, finding an English program sometimes may be harder to find than you would think, so it's important to do a lot of good research and work alongside your college counsellor. These universities typically have a rolling deadline, which means that you can apply throughout the year, your final year, for some of these universities. And some even allow you to apply after graduation. However, this does come with a word of warning that they require documentation to be uploaded as part of the application process. So having all of these documents in place early enough before you graduate is very important. So make sure you have all prepared documents before you leave ACS, and make sure your college counsellor is aware of your plans so we can best help. Examples of some documents that they require are copies of passports and in some cases a letter from a financial sponsor, aka the bank of mum and dad.
Now that we have a better understanding of what is available throughout the world, now we have to turn that research that we've done into action. So what takes place now that we've started to narrow things down based upon geography? So once you have some colleges and universities that you may be interested in, it is important to start visiting these universities. I always encourage students to look at a wide range of universities. So look at large versus small universities, urban versus rural universities. There's a number of different types of universities out there. And you may think that you know what exactly you want, but there's a lot of options that you should still keep your options open at this time. So if you can, we always recommend visiting a university. You will get a different feel when you actually step foot on a university campus. Now, this is not always possible, especially in today's time. So you will have the opportunity to visit them online, but even if you can just drive through a university town, a university campus, and get a feel for what is available to you, that's better than nothing. So try to do as much research as you can. Try to schedule time to either see a university, either virtually or in person. If you can't see a university now, that's okay. A lot of our students will plan to visit universities after they have been accepted. So what happens is usually people will apply in their senior year in grade 12 and get all of their university acceptances by sort of the February-March time. That leaves you with a couple of months that you can go visit the universities. And usually April break during the senior year is a great opportunity to go visit universities one final time. But that's down the road. This is the beginning stages that we're talking about now. So really it's just the first visit, the first point of contact that we're looking for. So gathering information and keeping that information in a centralized spot so you can go back and reference. By the end of grade 11, it is our goal that all students will have a preliminary list of where they want to apply. So gathering that short list, we call it. And on the BridgeU platform, you can actually start building your short list of universities that you may be interested in. By building that shortlist on BridgeU, it's really beneficial because the university counselors can also see where you're looking to attend. And in our conversations with you, we will have conversations about, say, for example, oh, you're looking at this one type of university, maybe you want to look at this other type of university as well. And these are the conversations that we will have throughout the year. Additionally, by the end of this year, all students will have completed the first draft of their personal statement or essay. So most universities, depending upon where you're applying, will require some type of writing sample from you in the form of a personal statement or an essay. The college counselors will be going into the English classes and teaching students how to write this first draft. And then in collaboration with your English teacher, we will be getting feedback to students about their first draft. And then this can continue on throughout the rest of the year. And then when we come back for grade 12. All students in grade 10, we do encourage that they take some type of testing before the end of the academic year. Now, many universities don't require testing, so you may be asking yourself, well, why? If I know that I don't need this, why should I take it? And we advise students because it does help advise us for things like course selection. Also, it can be used for things like UCAS. For example, if a student is doing the AP curriculum, a university may ask their entry requirements to be a combination of AP coursework and an SAT exam. So for us, it's something that we advise you to do because you may need it. And if you don't need it, then there's no harm done. But if you do need it and you haven't taken it, then that can be a problem. Also, when we're looking at universities and we're trying to compare how your academic profile stands up against other applicants, we can utilize test scores in that regards as well. Also, in today's time, many universities have gone what we call test optional, and this is primarily in the US. So many universities in the past that did require test scores are now saying that they are an optional part of the application. However, if you have taken a test and you have done well, that is just another feather in your cap. That is another good thing that we can tell the universities about how well you are as a student. So with that said, we do encourage students to take it. There are some upcoming test dates that you can see on the slides. The SAT is offered in March 13th, May 8th, and June 5th. The SAT subject test, which is a subject test that is 1 hour on one specific subject, can be taken on May 8th and June 5th. The subject tests usually are for very selective US universities, so not all students will need to take this test. And you can see that it's offered on some of the same days as the SAT test. You cannot take the SAT and the subject test on the same day. So if you are thinking of taking the SAT and the subject test, please plan accordingly because you will need to choose 2 different days to do this. The ACT is another type of university entrance exam. A lot of US universities will accept this. UK universities are not as familiar with the ACT. It's not to say that they will not accept it, but it is less familiar to them. The ACT test is available, it's a computer-based test, and it is available on the 16th and 17th of April, the 11th and 12th of June, and the 16th and 17th of July. Also, once again, testing is just a way to show your strengths. So what we talked about before, if you do well, that's a great thing to show the universities. The tests themselves are set up slightly differently. On our PowerSchool page, there is a diagnostic tool to help students understand what test may be better for them. You can see that the SAT and the ACT are set up slightly differently from each other. In addition to those university entrance exams, there's also English exams that students may need to take if English is not their primary language. So the most popular are TOEFL and IELTS, but also there's a new test called the Duolingo test that is quite popular and that more and more universities are beginning to accept. So if English is not your first language, there may be an English language requirement for you to go to study at a specific university, and that's something that you will want to look at when you are researching your universities. Just a quick reminder that the ACT has gone to a computer-based test and it needs to be done in a computer testing environment, which ACS Cobham is not one of those. So it would be hosted at an external site, whereas the SAT test is hosted at ACS Cobham. I do recommend, if you are interested in any of the test dates that you saw on the previous slide, to register early because we are an open test site. So that means that anyone from any school can register for the spots that we have available at ACS Cobham. Finally, in regards to testing, if you do need any special circumstances, such as extra time or a reader or anything like that, you should be contacting your resource teacher. The resource teaching department will help you set up the necessary requirements and application to get those special circumstances and special requirements. I cannot emphasize enough that it's important to do this very early on because sometimes it takes a lot of time, a long time to actually process this application and get approved for an upcoming exam.
Okay, so we're going to start with the overall process for applying to UK universities. To do this, we use UCAS. UCAS is a centralised platform where students have the choice of 5 separate courses to apply to. So these can be 5 separate universities. Students can apply to more than one course at a university, but usually students apply to 5 separate universities for 5 separate courses. You get 5 choices unless you're applying for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science. If you're applying to one of those courses, you get 4 choices with an additional choice in a course that is not in that field. If you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge, you only get 1 choice out of those 2. So you can either choose either Oxford or Cambridge, but you cannot do both in the application system. You're going to need to make sure that you check the UCAS website and check for all of the university entry requirements, all of the qualifications that you need to apply. So making sure that you are getting in line with the general points that are required for each of those courses. It's no use using all 5 choices on what we call reach universities, universities that may be a point or 2 above what you're predicted. So making sure that you're working with your college counsellor to find target universities, ones that are more realistic for you to academically attain by the end of the year. And we use predicted grades to help inform us of which universities are academically attainable. There are a number of deadlines for you to be aware of. If you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, or if you're applying for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science, the UCAS have a deadline of October the 15th, but we have an internal deadline in the College Counselling Department of October the 11th. It's essential that students meet that deadline in order to give the college counsellors enough time to get references, predicted grades, and all of the other necessary admin that's needed for that application to be then sent off to UCAS. What happens is students complete their UCAS application with the help of college counsellors. Make sure you come in to see us regularly to help move that forward. And then On October the 11th, if you are looking for one of those courses or universities that we've mentioned, that is your deadline in order for us to then do our side of the work. If you meet our deadline, then you will definitely meet the deadline for the university in UCAS. That's the first deadline, October the 11th. The second deadline is December the 1st. The December the 1st deadline is for the majority of students who are not applying for medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, or Oxford or Cambridge. If you meet the December the 1st deadline, you will meet the deadline that UCAS give on January the 15th. Because we have so many students applying for this deadline, and we also have students applying for the US and across the world, we need to make sure that we've got that time for that admin to get done. So again, you meet our deadline, you'll meet the university's deadline. Also part of the UCAS application, a very important part of that would be your personal statement. So the personal statement is 4,000 characters in which, and that's characters not words, in which you write about yourself, and it's a chance for you to show how you write and demonstrate your academic suitability and interests. These get started in grade 11. We come into your classes, college counsellors will come into your classes to give you some input into how to write these personal statements in March, with a deadline of the first draft being April the 1st. Once that first draft is done, we'll read through it, look through it, give you feedback, give it back to you in order to then make improvements and make your next draft. This really is a process that includes multiple drafts, and it takes many months for you to complete. So it's important not to leave it to the last moment. In this personal statement, you can do things such as highlight work experience, virtual work experience, to demonstrate your passion and interests in the subject, as well as your academic qualifications and how they demonstrate your suitability for the academic study that you're applying to. Also in the UCAS application, college counsellors will be putting your predicted grades in, whether it be your APs or your IBs. So it's really, really important to do your best in your APs and your IBs, and it's really important to get the best possible grades that you can. So make sure that you spend this time in grade 11 doing the best you can academically to set you up for this application process. Here are some more tips about the UCAS. You'll complete the online application at the website www.ucas.com. This can be used to help search the entry requirements as well as the actual application itself. A letter of reference will be written by the college counsellor with academic information provided by all the appropriate teachers. So it's important that when it's time for you to make requests with your teachers for your letters of recommendation and your references, that you do this in a timely manner, so then we get those back in time to write the most well-informed references that we can. Also, you need to be aware if your desired course requires any additional testing. So for example, in medicine, you may need to do a UCAT or a BMAT test in addition to the application process with your predicted grades. Thus, asking for additional predicted scores ultimately can serve as a bit of a detriment to you. We also offer mock interviews to fully prepare students as well. And you'll find on the PSL page there's a lot of advice and webinar that has been created to help best prepare you for those interviews if you were to have them as well. Another tip is to make sure that you apply through ACS, not individually. So in order to do that, there's something called a buzzword that you need to type in order for you to then get linked up between your application and the school and ultimately myself and the other college counsellors. So it links your application to the college counsellors, so then we can then put in your predicted grades and put in your reference as well. So, the United States. The United States is not as centralised as the UK's UCAS is. There is no one centralised system. However, there are many types of platforms that you can apply on. The most common is the Common App or the Common Application. There are also university-specific applications where you apply direct. There's also a growing number of universities starting to use the Coalition application. And another example is the University of California system, where you can apply to a number of UC schools in one application. There are a number of different deadlines to these applications. You've got early decision, you've got early action, you've got restrictive early action, you've got rolling, and you've got regular. To understand a little bit more about what those are, there is a webinar that's been uploaded onto the PSL under grade 12 page. So that's possible to learn a little bit more about that. But basically, it's important to understand that early decision is binding. That means if you were to apply to an early decision university or college in the US and were offered a place, you are required to take that place. So it is binding. The advantage of going early decision as well as early action is that it gets the decision-making process out of the way a little bit sooner, and it can help alleviate a little bit of worries and concerns about the application process. Will you get into university, will you not? But if you do go down the early decision route, make sure that you are really aware that that is the school that you are the most interested in applying to, and that you'd be very happy to take that university or college. Early action is similar to early decision in the fact that you apply early. So the deadline for both of these, the internal deadline for both of these is October the 20th for a December the 1st deadline. But the difference with early action to early decision is that it is not legally binding. If it is early action, you are able to apply to more than one university as an early action applicant, unless it is a restrictive early action, which restricts you only to one university to apply to in early action, but is not legally binding. The restrictive early action also has an October the 20th ACS internal deadline, which will then help you meet the November the 1st deadline. We also have something called rolling, which means the application deadline or process rolls throughout the academic year. But in order to be best prepared and give yourself the best chance for that, the sooner the better will be more beneficial for you. The majority of students do apply to the US using the regular decision route. The regular decision route has a December the 1st deadline, just like the UCAS does. So the majority of students working towards that December the 1st deadline. What that means is you can apply to a range of different universities, not worry about whether or not it's legally binding, as well as have a little bit more time to complete your application to do the best you can within your application itself. There are a number of required documents when you're applying to the US. There are teacher recommendations, typically two, a counsellor recommendation as well. So it's important to make sure that not only are you developing a good rapport and impressing your teachers, but also you are developing a strong line of communication with your college counsellors. The more we know about you, the more we can advocate for you in your recommendation as well. So make sure that you're meeting your college counsellor as much as you can to help them to make sure that they can have the most well-informed recommendation for you. Now, transcripts. Transcripts are uploaded more than once in the process. The first upload of a transcript will be what we call the initial transcript. The initial transcript will have all your grades from grade 9 up until the end of grade 11. Your GPA will be calculated on grade 11 for that initial transcript only. Then once you've completed semester 2 in grade 12, we then upload your mid-year transcript, which then incorporates a GPA with grade 11 and grade 12, semester 1, and shows all of the other grades that you've had up till that point. That gets uploaded, and then that helps inform colleges about their decisions. Also, as part of the application to the US, you'll need to write an essay. This will be different to the personal statement, and it's a little bit more introspective and a little bit more personal, where you can discuss a challenge or an identity that you have that you want to share with the university. It's a lot more introspective and reflective in its nature, and it's your chance to demonstrate to the colleges your voice, so then they get to know you better as a person and as a writer. Having test scores such as SATs and ACTs can also be used as well. Also part of the process, having a portfolio if it's applicable, or an audition tape if it's applicable, or even a resume if it's applicable as well, is also good to have. Most students apply to about 6 to 8 colleges for the US, but students can also apply to more than one country as well. So you don't need to just choose UK or the US. You can also apply to the US, the UK, and Europe, or further afield to other universities in other countries, as we've already explored earlier on in the presentation.
Now that we've heard about the application processes in many different countries and the different countries' offerings, I do want to remind you of some things that you should be doing and focusing upon throughout the rest of grade 11. So once again, the first is to research your colleges and universities, utilize the resources that we talked about earlier in this presentation, and focus on creating a controlled list of universities that you may be interested in. At this time, it's okay if that university list builds and builds and builds. Throughout the rest of this year, that is the goal, to expand that shortlist as much as you can. And then as you go along throughout the summertime and then the beginning of grade 12, you will start to narrow down your list to the final selection that you will end up applying to. Begin to work on your essay and personal statement. As previously stated, we will be working with your English teachers to talk about your first draft of your personal statement, motivational letter, or essay. This should be done by the end of grade 11 and will be an assignment in your English class. If you do need preliminary testing with the SAT, ACT, or any of the English-based tests, please register for that and register early. Meet with your college counselors. This may be a little bit difficult because we are virtual, but we are here and we're available to you. So please schedule at least one meeting with us. However, I guarantee that you will want to have more than one meeting with us, and that's perfectly okay. We should be meeting constantly because this is your own individual journey that we are here helping you out with. Make summer plans. Now, that can be difficult because plans have been changing, but make plans that, can help you either with your research or, just build your application material. So if you feel like you are lacking in a certain area, say you don't have enough skills in a certain subject and you want to apply into that subject, well then maybe try to get a work experience or a shadowing experience or an internship, or just do more research throughout the summer on that subject. So make this summer count. You have the time, make use of it. Complete the pledge form and the student self-recommendation. After this presentation, we will send you some documents that's really important for you to fill out. It helps to highlight some of the deadlines that we've talked about in this presentation, and it fills us in to more information about you. It's our goal to learn as much as we can about the students and the families. The more that we know about you, the better we can advise you through this process. And by completing things like the pledge form and the self-recommendation, and later on the parent questionnaire that we send out, it's incredibly helpful to the college counseling staff. So please make sure you do that before the end of grade 11. Finally, I want to show some additional resources. So I know that money is always a concern when students go away to university. Here are some useful websites about scholarships and also helping to determine what fee status you are maybe applying into. The last website there, the UCAS website, ukcisa.org.uk, is specifically designed to help students identify what fee status they will be paying for UK-based universities. Now this is different because things are changing with Brexit, with residency requirements. So if you are unsure about what type of, if you're paying home fees or international fees, that's a great website for you to look at. The other ones are more based upon scholarships, but there's a lot of information out there. In general, you should never be paying someone to do a scholarship search for you. Once things become, costful, then it's not sort of legitimate. So just be wary of what's out there. These are some resources that we have found that are quite useful, and on our PowerSchool Learning page there's a ton of more information about this. As we've referenced before, BridgeU is our college counseling tool that we use. You should already have access to this. At the beginning of the presentation, we referenced this. The last virtual presentation that we did, we also talked about BridgeU, and everyone should have received an email with information about how to register. If you have not registered in BridgeU, if you have not gone on, please check your email. Once you go on, you can do a student profile builder, and that helps you start looking at what options are out there for you for universities around the world. If you don't have access to this, please contact your college counselor and we will make sure that you get access to it. Finally, we know that there are lots of questions throughout this whole process, and we want to make you aware that we are here for you. You will either be working with Mr. Forrester or myself. Hopefully you know who your college counselor is at this time. If you don't, reach out to either of us and ask us, and we will let you know who that person is. Make sure you start to schedule your first appointment with Mr. Forrester or myself. We can do that virtually. Your parents can be there if they want. Nothing has really changed with this process. We need to proceed as normal as best as possible, and what normal is having these meetings between yourself and your college counselor. However, if you do have any questions, any random questions, and you haven't made an appointment, we do want to make ourselves available to you. So we will be hosting just weekly drop-in sessions for any small concerns that you may have, and those will be on Wednesdays starting the 13th of January from 11 a.m. till 12 noon. And you can go to the website, the Zoom website there, or the meeting ID for Zoom, and just drop in at any time within that hour, and Mr. Forrester and I will be there to answer the questions that you may have. So we know that's a ton of information that we've given you today, but rest assured that this presentation will be available on the PowerSchool Learning page, as well as all the information that we've talked about today, the resources that are available on the PowerSchool Learning page. So please make use of that. Please make use of your college counselors. We are here to support you through this process. And always, if you have questions or any concerns, we are here to help you, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for taking the time and listening to this presentation, and we look forward to working with you throughout this process. Thank you.